PDR Tool Time, your industry podcast, tools, reviews, and stories. Welcome to another episode of PDR Tool Time. This is episode 163. I'm your host, Vince D'Alessandro, here with Daniel Grom, John Renstrom, and we have a special guest tonight. This episode is brought to you by Daniel.
Hog Glue, Hog Tabs, Magnatech Mat, and Mobile Tech RX. And CBD
Direct.
CBD
Oils.com.
CBDdirectoils.com saved my life. Love it. If you guys are having aches and pains, get on there, get the code. Don't hesitate. Some relief right now.
And don't forget about our friends over at Edgy Tools.
Edgy Tools, awesome tips.
Another discount code.
Downs. And the discount code for them too is what?
PDRTT10.
Perfect.
Yes.
Look at us, all on the ball right now, just nailing it out of the park, man. It is like baseball season up here at PDR Tool Time.
Yes. Well,
so Vince, what's our subject?
Our subject is hail ready. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is hail is already dropping throughout the South right now. Texas has been hit, Oklahoma, St. Louis, and probably by the time this podcast airs, a few more towns will already get hit. So I want to make sure that all our listeners that are hail chasers or thinking about hail chasing are on the ball and ready for the proper tools and what to expect, and making sure you have the right apps to follow through and make it a successful season for you.
Time to Boy Scout up.
Now,
kids.
John, remind me, didn't we just have a guy on recently that predicted some of these hailstorms? The first hailstorm?
We certainly did.
Tell our listeners about that.
Hail Trace with Derek Klein. They made the bold prediction of where our first storms were going to be, and they came true.
They nailed it.
Knocked it out of the park. Speaking of knocking things out of the park, we have our host, special extra host in here, Mr. Tim Kordon.
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Tim. We've had your brother on several times, but it's time to get the big man, the big dog, the man behind the scenes on here.
The man behind the scenes.
The brains behind the scenes. Come on, just really tell how it is, you know.
I don't know about that.
He's just like the pretty
but I'm here.
boy face up front.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that right?
Yes, it's exhausting.
It's
Thank you.
You know what's cool? I don't want to skip one thing, though. Hail Trace is actually going to be at the Anson Bonanza, and he's bringing his hail chasing truck with him, or his storm chasing truck, which is going to be all decked out. He talked about it on the show. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew about that. There's going to be a ton of guys in Texas already, in Dallas-Fort Worth area, so get down to the Anson Bonanza. It's Good Friday, the Friday before Easter, and myself, Daniel. Tim, you going to be there?
You know, I haven't decided yet. I have a couple people pulling me to go there. We have a partner in another business that will be there.
Yeah.
That's actually a partner with Craig Dyer. So it'd be nice to touch base with him. He's part of a team in another company that we have that does some auditing for hail. So we might be down there, maybe repping some Carbon Tech tools. You know, I always help Todd. So
yes,
we'll see.
Fantastic.
So, Tim, let me ask you a question. So I called you today and asked you to come onto the show. Late notice. And literally, like maybe a half an hour later, your brother texted me.
That's funny.
And he's like, "Do you want me to come on the show?" Did you mention it to him? Or is this some brotherly jealousy thing going on, or what?
What's funny is he doesn't even know. He has no clue. I didn't even tell him or talk to him.
He just sensed it.
He must have. His spidey sense. We've spent a lot of time together lately since I've made him a partner in Den Shop. So I don't know. Maybe it's like
he's very jealous, I think, of you. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure he's terribly jealous. He should be.
Well, that's awesome. That's good. Well, we got two guys here that are veterans of chasing hail all throughout this country. They've been very successful. Daniel and I wanted to bring Tim on as the second man that will talk to us about what you need to do in the beginning of the season here. I know a lot of people, some veterans that control their money a little bit more, they usually tend to wait a little while after the first couple storms, see what happens. But for those hitting the road right now and getting ready to get on their first storms, what are some of the things that you should be doing at this point?
Well, I think we should probably really open up with discussing the two different styles of hail chasing that Tim and I did.
Sure.
My wife and I, we loaded up into an RV and hit the road. And we hit the road with the intention of not coming home beyond a 1 or 2 day visit. And we would stay on that road for 9 or 10 months out of the year, living in our motorhome. So for me, I would have left like 2 weeks ago. We'd have had our bus packed. We had all the tools polished. Well, I already polished and shined all of my tools. I could be packed and on the road in an hour right now. It's habitual at this point. I did that hard for 10 solid years. So I just last weekend, man, I made sure all my tools were rocking and rolling and ready to go. And they're all dressed up, no place to go. But we would be prepped and have everything. We would have clothes on board our motorhome for cold and hot weather because we didn't know what state we were going to be in. Were we going to be south? Were we going to be north? And we were prepared for everything, had the flexibility. We made sure that we had your subscription to whatever hail service that you're going to follow. However you're doing that, like if you're using Hail Trace, make sure you understand it. Don't wait till hail season to get it going. Get it up, understand how their maps come into place, watch it, understand the data that you have. And then as soon as the storms were start falling, we would start looking up that analytics on that data and then head out and decide where we wanted to go, what we wanted to do. And we would do that for 9 months out of the year.
Wow.
So tell our listeners what apps are like the top 5, I guess, or 3 or whatever.
As far as getting in the hail info.
Yeah.
So I think Hail Trace, I believe, is probably the number 1. And that's really moving in off of, on the backs of the roofing industry. Anything weather is out there. And then SPC. Those are the main 3 that I really know of. I think there's eye damage guys talk about, and I've seen that one, but I don't know. I have zero familiarity with eye damage.
Tim, do you follow any apps or programs out there?
Yeah, so so I primarily follow eye damage, and most of the guys I run with follow eye damage. Now I do tune into Hail Trace as well. So between both of those, you have a pretty good beat of what's going on in the lay of the land. And it's funny because just listening to John and everything he was going through, I'm like, man, I feel quite underprepared compared to what he does every year, ramping up for hail season, packing everything up. But, it's very interesting because we walk 2 very different paths, and how we approach our hail years. And I even think we both do it differently than most of your average hail guys do it, where John, runs out and he's gone for 10 months out of the year. I would always try to keep my hail seasons as condensed and as short as possible because I have a wife and 4 kids at home. And I also, over the last couple of years, I got to the point where I don't even like to drive very far anymore, where if it hails somewhere, if it's any more than 6 or 7 hours, I'm packing my stuff, I'm putting it on a plane, and I'm flying to that destination. I'm going to rent a car, and I'm going to buy whatever else I couldn't bring with me on a plane. Yeah. So it's
Whereas I drove from Niagara Falls, New York to Casper, Wyoming to fix hail cars for 3 weeks.
That was last year.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny. So it's 2, totally different paths and approaches we take. Most guys put all of their tools in the back of their truck, and they start driving. So two very different approaches. I mean, everything John said was good information. I mean, it's wise. I'm not crazy about being on social media and putting a lot of my stuff out there, but you need to be on there. You need to find out what's going on so you have a good feel for, where what's happening, what guys are doing. You learn a lot of stuff, what approaches they're taking. There's a lot of information out there to be had. Tuning into programs like this. where you can get a beat on, some of the newest stuff or ways to stay connected, more importantly.
Now, do you get your vehicle prepped at all, Tim? Like, I mean, before I go out, everything is serviced. It's ready to go. Maybe I'm over the top, but
no, I call Budget and Avis and National, and I say, hey, make sure you got those things tuned up, because when I come into town, I want to make sure that I can get to where I got to go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I did a lot of really long-term storms because of the way, and the group that I ran with, I would do 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10-month-long storms.
But so you're got your wife with you, you got your family, you got your house with you. You're like, that's a great setup for you. Tim's got a family, got kids. They're school. So he's doing a different style. So this is a perfect example of two ways to do it, And
that's why I thought Tim was so great. Yeah,
no, he's a perfect example of the majority of the guys out there.
Yeah,
you got the new guy there, young and single. The young and single guy, he might think about buying a used RV, and just going that way.
And I think we are seeing that a lot more. And still, the one thing to remember with the RV, though, is the RV kind of becomes your life. You better be you're a homeowner and a mechanic all into one to keep those things going at all times. That is your house, and you can't cram everything in and be gone lickety split. Like Tim, the way you're talking about, it's like, man, this thing blew. I'm returning my rental car. I'm on the plane. I'm heading home, and I believe your favorite tool cart is a Rubbermaid 55-gallon trash can. Was that?
It just depends on what size they have in stock, but you make do with what you have.
What's this? Tell me. Let's dive into that.
Well, so when you're flying, you can only bring so much stuff with you, right? So you have to be pretty selective of what you bring. In fact, a lot of guys are like, "How do you fix anything with these tools?" And the real answer is glue, right? I don't always tell them that, but. So you have to make do with what you have, right? And I really don't like any of the off-the-shelf cart options that you have. So the easiest way for me to deal with that is to buy a Rubbermaid trash can and put a dolly on it, and I drill a bunch of holes, and I cut a bunch of slots on the top, and I cut a little place to drop a magnet tray that has all my glue tabs, and I put all my tools around the outside, and
shut up,
roll everywhere I got to go.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah. Yep. And then you're out like only a few bucks. You put all your tools back in you guys were using a golf bag, if I recall, right?
So I'll throw it in a hard golf case. Typically, I'll throw all my stuff, and then I'll have my carry-on bag with all my clothes, and I'll pack all my little accessories and stuff in there with my clothes, and I can pretty much fly out with 2 bags.
Wow. No. And then you just leave the trash can.
How much do they charge you to ship your tools?
So that's another interesting scenario. So I've paid as much as $1,500 or $1,200 one way to Dallas from DC. So I'm right next to Dulles Airport, and that's a common flight. Until I learned it's actually cheaper for me to book a first class ticket because then it'll include 2 bags up to 70 pounds for free.
Yeah,
and I can fly in comfort. So whenever I travel with my tools, I always book a first class ticket. Sometimes it's mixed cabin if I got to fly up to like John's neck of the woods when you're working for somebody that lives way the heck out there, because there is no first class to those airports.
Sure.
Nope.
Those are just propeller planes with a few seats in them.
A lot of times
I have done that on a turboprop.
Right.
Yep. People ask me, it's like, why don't you just upgrade your seating? I'm like, because when I sit at the back of the plane leaving Rapid City, South Dakota, I tap the guy in first class on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Sup, buddy? Pass the peanuts, man. I once stepped on a plane and asked the stewardess if that was glue that I smelled drying. It's like, is this thing ready to fly? Is that glue still wet?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I was curious about when you're flying, and you guys showed up out here, and then I saw the trash can, and the good Rubbermaid trash cans will have the wheels on the bottom of them too.
Well, you got to buy that separately. That's an additional $35.
Yes.
But you're recommending the wheels, right?
Oh yeah. What are you going to do? Drag that around and drive everybody nuts? Drag them across the floor?
Okay. Go first class or go.
Yeah, that's right.
Keep it classy, San Diego.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's like the most extreme, because I carry, if I showed up at a storm with Tim and crew, I could get all four of them working out of my tool carts, because I drive a 47,000 pound RV, so it doesn't matter if I have 700 pounds worth of tools on board. So I made sure I always had what I need, and it wasn't that uncommon for me to show up at a storm and meet up with guys that had driven there, with a little pack, and be like, can I borrow that? Can I borrow that? You haven't used these 3 yet, this car. So they'll use those, and yeah, it was always a lot of fun.
The other thing too to consider too with the RVs, and I know a lot of guys were running into this problem in Colorado last year, was a place to park it. They were all RV parks were full, just with visitors on vacation and stuff. And here comes a major hailstorm in the Denver area, and there's no place to park an RV. So that's something to consider as well.
Yeah,
Walmart,
absolutely. Walmart, you only have so long at a Walmart. Not to mention the fact that you need to, as sooner or later, go Cousin Eddie on that thing.
Yeah,
and
shitter's full.
Yep. Merry Christmas, shitter's full. But where it worked really well for my wife and I is we would know that it hailed, and we would have our contact there, and we would hit the road, and the whole time she's sitting in the passenger seat. If it's a brand new area, she's got laptops, tablets, phone going, and she is Googling and calling every single place that there is to park. We one time found in Arlington, Texas, a trailer park that accepted RVs, and was in the trailer park, they're like, well, you have to mow your own lawn. And I'm like, this is a 3-week storm. I'm out of here before this stuff gets that long.
John, but I mean, what's the most you've paid to stay at a place for a month?
For a month, $1,400.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought, because I had thought about diving in and maybe buying like a Sprinter conversion van. Working out of that, because I was going, well, look at how much money I'm spending in a hotel, especially everywhere I go. It seems like there's something going on. Like I when I've been working in New York, it's like NFL Hall of Fame week, right? And I can't get
NASCAR race.
When I was working in Oklahoma, of course, in 2013, the big storm hit more, so everybody's out of their houses. Then it was like the softball world championship. And there was no rooms. They were charging out the roof. And I'm like, if I'm paying $3,000-$4,000 a month, why don't I just pay $3,000 or $4,000 a month on an RV, and I can live in comfort, and I don't have to pack up and move hotels every 4 days?
I think over the 10 years, I think we averaged probably about $600 a month in an overall average. The cheapest we've ever stayed was in Georgia at $240 for the month.
Yeah, but I knew it could get pricey too. That's something that I had never considered when I had started looking. And my father-in-law runs around in an Airstream, and I know he's paid some pretty hefty prices on staying at some of those places.
And that was in Burleson, Texas, was the most expensive. There's, I think, a Jellystone Park that's there in Burleson.
Yeah.
And you could only pay by the week, and that's why that was the most expensive place that we've ever stayed. We only were there 2 weeks.
So let me ask you a question, Tim. So you're going in skinny on these deals. What do you do for a hood stand?
So depending on where I'm going and who I'm working, I can do a couple different things. I could pay to haul an extra piece of luggage, right, and bring a hood stand with me. More often than not, I'm working with or for somebody I know, and they usually always have a stand. A lot of the times you're going in, you're working as a team anyways. I know John's a lone ranger, but a lot of times you're working as a team, and half the time, like I said, maybe I'll have somebody just bring a trash can for me.
Yeah.
But also when you're teaming up, Tim, do you guys do this? Every time I've teamed up, you pretty much have one guy who's a hood guy, and and trunk guy, and somebody else is blazing. Now you guys alternate back and forth, but generally you kind of get in a groove, and then pretty soon the whole storm's gone by, and you realize, man, I fixed every hood.
Yeah, no, and that is true. And I tend to be more of a roof and rail guy, because rails are they're kind of my specialty. I could thank Kyle Ellis for that. But so I naturally, it's easier for me to do the roof, run the rails while somebody else is doing the hood and trunk, and then start running the sides.
Yeah.
But that is true.
Play to everybody's strengths.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And it really, you really get into the groove when you're doing that. Now, tell me about changing storms in your position. A lot of times, I've been on a deal where I changed the storm every 4 weeks, but I worked all 12 months that year too, ironically. But it was pretty cool. But we just load up the house. It was like nothing. I hit 2 buttons. It's all good. How do you do it when you're flying and renting?
It's actually it works out fairly easy. If I'm flying and renting, depending on how far it is, I might just drive the rental there. I might just hop in the car if it's somewhere not too far, and I'll drive the rental there. If not, I'll book a plane ticket and I'll fly there.
Okay.
So usually, I'm not jumping into too many deals that I don't have a pretty good idea of what's going on. Usually I know it's something that's well established and know about what I can make before I, there's always anything can happen, but I'll just pack up and I'll go.
So let me ask you this for both of you guys. So here's a new guy ready to go out on the Hail Trail, right? And he's hungry. He's like ready to go. What advice do you give him to get into his first storm?
Well, I guess I could kind of start this one here. If you've already networked and companies that you want to work for, there's a lot of hail companies out there. And if you're trying to work for any one of the major brokerages or large hail companies,
name top 3.
Well, I guess top 3 would be Dent Wizard,
KHS,
CSI, KHS, Dent, PDR Links, 300, all of those guys. And each one of those companies has a software that they recommend using. Now, I would like to tell you all it was only Mobile Tech RX, but it's not. And that is just the reality of it. Each company, if you want to go to work for one of those companies, and you should really know those softwares, everybody's software, not just Mobile Tech RX, which you should keep a year-round subscription on monthly. But no, I'm just kidding. Stop it and start. But know your estimating systems. If you're working for somebody who tells you that you need to use Mobile Tech RX, you need to use PDR Mobile, DentMate, Recon Pro, any of them that are out there.
Wait a second. The smartest guy is going to go with the company that's using Mobile Tech RX because they're going to make more money.
Well, I'm going to claim so, but that's, I am kind of tooting my own horn. But the reality is those other companies are out there, and you need to know your software. If you wait until you're at the storm to get re-signed up or reactivate your subscription or to get signed up for the first time, you are months and days of data out of the loop. You really are. You're actually costing yourself a fortune by not being able to hit the ground running with your software.
Well, that it's interesting, John, because I want to know how, what you think the best way is to deal with that and navigate with that. So obviously, it would seem very cost prohibitive to not actually subscribe to all those softwares and then to download them and learn them all. So for instance, and this is, just for instance, I've only used Mobile Tech RX. Now I played around with Dingstinger for a little while. I haven't messed with DentMate or any of them, but
if you know the plan, every single one of them has a free trial. Okay. All of us do. And if you're new and just starting out and you've been networking on social media or whatever and trying to get yourself hooked up with one of these companies, it behooves yourself to download that free trial and be familiar. Even if you're not doing it, all of us have a YouTube channel with videos. You should at least be pre-watching those and getting an idea of how the software works.
Mm-hmm.
There's free ways to gain the knowledge. Go to each of our websites and watch the tutorial videos. All of us have videos on our websites. All of us have videos on our YouTube pages.
That's a good point.
You should really have yourself prepared to understand your software. So the moment in which you reactivate it, we're dealing with this right now. We've got dent guys calling us up in a panic. I can't reactivate. Homie, new credit card.
Yeah.
You know, but you should have known hail season was coming. Now, of course, last year it started late, but 30 days from any of us is cheap. You know, if you're everybody you're using and everybody you're working with is only one software, you know, like if you know everybody you're working for uses Mobile Tech RX, $65 to ensure that you hit the ground running and making the most amount of money from the day you show up. By the time I got to a storm, I backed my Jeep into the shop. I am fixing a car, my first car, within an hour and 30 minutes. I have unloaded my tools. I have set up my workstation. I have estimated that car, and I have turned in the paperwork, and my wife has started the R&Is while I'm still smooching the manager. But that's how fast I can be up and running at any storm I've ever gotten to.
And just as a disclaimer, you could easily get it done in a fraction of that if you don't haul around 80,000 tools like John Renstrom does.
Right.
But I'm talking, you're unloaded on that car, and you've gotten all of your estimates done. And that's just because I'm familiar with my software. And if I was still hail chasing and I was going to go to work for Ryan Hampton, and he told me I had to use PDR Mobile, I guarantee you today I would be having a conflict of interest with the subscription to PDR Mobile. But that's because I know if I want to make my living from that man, I better know the software that he's telling me I need to use.
Yeah.
And it's the same with Dent Wizard, PDR Link, CSI, KHS, all of those companies, your local guys. I mean, there's, you know, tons of us out there with the different softwares.
Yeah.
Now, if you're just running and gunning, then pick your software of choice, preferably Mobile Tech RX. Learn it well, go make a lot of money. Brag about it on Facebook.
I can totally speak into that too, because you know we've with doing a lot of auditing for dealers. Even last year when John and I were both working in Wyoming, not on the same deals, but when I go through and we have to estimate, you know, 250 or 400 cars, definitely having something digital to do it with. I mean, I had a guy say to me once, he goes, yeah, but you know, there's nothing like a paper backup, you know, in case something happens.
Then print it out.
What happens if you spill coffee on that paper backup? Then you lose thousands of dollars. And I said, the IRS, who has the biggest paper logistical nightmare out of anybody on earth, I said, do you think they keep paper copies of everything?
Yep.
He goes, well, you have a point.
Yeah.
I've never had my tablet blow out the door because I opened it in the wind.
But it's fat when you learn how to use it. You can do an estimate much faster. You don't rely on somebody's handwriting for notes, any of that. And then not to mention when we have to circle and photo. Now the key to that documentation is making sure that you get proper compensation. So, you know, definitely know your software, know how to run it. We love Mobile Tech RX.
Our kids do all their homework digitally now, and I've never heard them say, my dog ate my homework.
Yeah.
Until your dog poops out a phone.
Yeah, and they can't even use the excuse like the printer ran out of ink because they don't even print anything out anymore. They just send it digitally to their teachers.
It truly is a digital world.
My kid's in 7th grade and he doesn't even know cursive. They haven't even taught him cursive.
Well, I think they're getting rid of it in a lot of schools.
Yeah, and he's in a private school, and the kid doesn't know how to
type. He can type on a keyboard way better than you can.
Actually, I just heard a whole thing about this, and if they don't know cursive, they won't get a job because they have to read cursive for the older executives.
Right.
So if they can't read cursive.
Well, our kids are in grade school. By the time they're in the workforce, those old executives are going to be
telling
dead.
you what they're saying. I'm just passing info on.
Right.
Don't get me on Messenger.
Yeah.
But yeah, knowing the estimating system, and if you're running independent, like I did for a very long time, but even before Mobile Tech RX, I carried a laptop and I had Mitchell Ultramate and I wrote in full computerized estimating. I did that forever. So just be very prepared with your estimating software.
Yeah.
Watch those videos. get ready to do it.
Okay.
No,
So let's shift gears a little bit. What else?
Well,
what else?
There's something that we need to cover too. Is like there's a whole bunch of new tools that have come out in the last year that are geared towards
tools.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Let's because we've had quite a few people on the show this past year that have come out with some really good tools before the season even hit.
So we laugh and joke about my 800 pounds worth of tools, but it used to be 1,200 till carbon fiber hit the market.
Right. Yeah, and one of those that I wanted to bring up was Endeavor tools. His bars came out, his hail rods came out, and his hanger came out. Right in the middle of the season, or right towards the end of the season. So guys haven't even really been able to use those tools yet. And I just want to remind people of Endeavor tools over there. They have awesome bars that are going on. It's the 80/20 stock. His tips are angled properly, so it's less fatigue on your hands, and you get right to the dent right away. And then his hangers are just fantastic as well.
Oh, the hanger is just phenomenal. But the one thing that's great about Endeavor is that it's square, and you don't realize how much wrist strength you're using on a round rod to keep it level, keep your tip level or straight or whatever you want to call it, using a lot of wrist and forearm strength that you don't realize. And with that square rod, you're just pushing down.
Yeah.
Your hand is open and you're pushing down, and there's a big fatigue value for that.
And I think when I tend to use his rods, the shorter rods, because I still have my Carbon Tech that I'm using for the longer rods, and obviously on rail or bedsides and stuff like that. But sorry, I just wanted to throw that out there. Carbon Tech is still my number one rod.
But still, the some of the new door tools with the adjustable handles. I used to have a huge array, and as I was putting away my dent reapers, I'm like, man, these three are going to cover such a gauntlet that I used to have. To try to make sure that you always had your access. You're now just moving the handles out of the way, and then all these adjustable handle tools.
Yeah. Well, the whole tequila line.
The tequila line. If you're doing any aluminum cars, you gotta have them. I mean, I don't even know how you'd even be able to.
I killed this. I slayed the aluminum Ford roofs, Super Duties, and F-150s with the tequila line last year. They were my saving grace on those Super Duty trucks.
And Tim's smiling at us like, "What are all these tools you're talking about?"
He's like, "Well."
The reason why I was invited on is because I am the polar opposite of John Renstrom in my preparedness and my tools. Yeah,
exactly right.
Because like I said, I mean, I fly with such a lean set, and I even had Chris from Anson one time go, "Who uses those things anymore?" Some of the stuff I have is like some of the original Dankcraft stuff, but honestly, for me, the single biggest upgrade, to my setup was obviously the carbon fiber, hail rod. That reduction in weight of the tool hanging out there at 5 feet.
That's a must, right?
It's just huge. Yep. Yeah, you can't operate without it, especially if you can get it in a bedside. I mean, I've run really, slam bedsides relatively quickly because you have the leverage to do it.
Oh, you can mow through them.
Plus, for a guy like you that's flying, it breaks down really small.
It's light.
So you can get it in a smaller length bag.
Mm-hmm.
I just cleaned out my garage, and my 7-foot Dankcraft, the 2-piece old 5/8 Dankcraft rod, and it's like had to put on the old weight belt, move that sucker to the other side of the garage,
and I'm thinking, go back and try to push a dent with that now, John.
I know. Compared to using a Carbon Tech, and that was the world of carbon fiber. Is out there, pimp sticks, and the smaller rods really drops that weight.
Carbon Tech is coming out with all kinds of new accessories. I'm so excited. I get privy to a lot of the stuff.
Be careful. Don't talk about stuff you're not supposed to talk about.
No, I won't.
All right.
But pretty soon there's going to be a knife and fork attachment so you can eat with that Carbon Tech rod.
I think we can talk about the broom attachment. He actually has a... No, we can't talk about that.
No, sure you can. Yeah, you can talk about the broom attachment.
Okay, because he sent me something today and said, "Don't throw anyone."
Okay. So we're not going to talk about the broom attachment that he's got coming out soon, but so ignore that.
So, but it really is. And Tim, yes, you are like the quintessential. I just remember rolling into the back of the dealership to come say hi, and you guys were prepping the Rubbermaid, and I'm like, yeah, that's all you brought. But I will say this: I once showed up at a storm with Tony Frazier, and he unloaded like 4 tool carts worth of tools. He made me look like a light packer, and I've actually worked with a couple of guys like that. And my new rule has been, if I buy in one tool, it needs to chuck out some old ones, in multiple. And that's where tools like Dent Reaper have really come into place. The Carbon Tech rod and the tips on that thing. I mean, I chucked a ton of weight out of my travel kit with those tools there, and the carbon fiber hood stand. Man, that's, yeah.
You know what my big fear is, John? I worked with a guy once whose name was John, actually, and he had a lot of stuff on his cart, and he was rolling across the shop floor one time, and he hit this grate on the floor, and that thing fell over, and I'm not joking. It took him an hour and a half to clean his stuff up.
I have not experienced that, but I did get very close.
Yeah.
But I've had to pick up the 52 glue tabs many times.
Yeah. Could you imagine if Daniel was on the Hail Trail? He would have to bring a bench grinder with him.
Oh my gosh.
That would be the first thing unloaded, man.
Yeah. The
Be
bench
not-
grinder.
4 motorcycle tanks in case he got a break for a minute.
Yeah.
I was going to video my shop stall last year towards the end to do a Facebook Live, but then I decided I wouldn't. But I had so much space. I brought my own, the buffers that are shaped just like the bench grinder. I took my buffer and it had its own bench set up. So every time I'd get like a little piece of dirt on one of the tips of my tap downs or my hammers, like, and everything had a mirror polish on it at all times. I had my own bathroom, refrigerator. It was huge. I had 6 stalls.
Yeah. Now, Tim, what's your background? What did you do before PDR?
So before PDR, I was in high school.
Okay. So you've been...
But no, yeah. So no, seriously though. So I was in high school. I was in a vocational school for auto mechanics. I have some kind of ASC certification. I can't even remember what it is.
Gotcha.
I went into a job placement program through it. So I worked at a couple different dealers while I was at school. I would leave half a day, and I was like, shoot, I can make money working on cars rather than be in school. So I did that.
Uh-huh.
But at that same time is when Paul had started doing paintless dent repair. And I was in that program, and I'm cut up and greasy, and they made me an offer that I thought sucked. And I knew Paul was doing pretty well, and he was making his own schedule. And I was like, forget that. I want to do dents.
Yeah.
So I had started, inquiring and meeting with his boss, and went through several interviews, and he agreed to hire me. And I hadn't even, we still hadn't graduated. I hadn't graduated yet. But I had the job.
Yeah.
So it's basically a week after I got out of high school, I called him and said, hey, I'm ready to go. He was thinking I was taking the summer off. I'm like, no, I'm ready to make money. And I started training at 17 and a half, and I hit the road billing full commission for his local company here when I was 17 and a half, or I'm sorry, when a month before I turned 18.
Yeah.
I started billing full commission.
Wow.
And that's pretty much all I've ever done.
And that's why I wanted to ask, because you have John, who comes from a body shop owner background, and has every tool for the job, and you're just like a pure, right out of high school. You were like myself. I basically went to college for 5 seconds, and got right into PDR. And I think it has something to say, because I didn't have a lot of tools when we started this podcast, and these bastards made me go out and buy tools and get tools and this and that. Mike, good old Mike Toledo. Hey, Vince, you need this tool, man. Hey, get this tool. Before
I know, Daniel did it to me when I was up there. I came back and I'm like, all right, we got to buy these stand liner tools.
Right.
And now that we got a couple guys working for us, I'm like, we probably have to buy them for them too.
Yeah.
So thanks, Daniel.
Let me ask you this, Tim. We kind of covered how I do my living, and that you're in motels. Do you have like club, motel clubs or hotel, point systems?
Points.
Are there? Yeah.
No,
do you use anything like that?
I personally don't. I know plenty of guys that do. They always try to stay at, like a Marriott, or try to stay at a Holiday Inn or one of those, chains, obviously, because they have a bunch of different names in their network.
Tim's at the Ritz-Carlton. Otherwise, he doesn't go to the store. If they don't have the Ritz-Carlton, forget it.
I'm actually mine is a little more pathetic than that. I actually go in and I prefer to. Sometimes I'll book them online if I can get a good deal at a deal site. Although they're not refundable, so keep that in mind, guys. And you don't get the same support if you need something, from the front desk. You got to change, you're in and out early, or a lot of times you can lose your money in those areas. So a lot of times I'll prefer to go in and actually just negotiate in person. It worked really well out there in Wyoming last year because I went and did it at a Holiday Inn, and I guess there's these things that are called a block. What she did is she created a block for us, and I had everybody come in and say that they were with me. And what I didn't realize at the time that when they did that is I actually got all the points at Holiday Inn for that. So next thing you know, they mailed me a card in there that said, "Hey, you're a gold member." And I just walked in and said, "Hey, look, it's going to be me, and there's going to be about 10 other guys coming in. So we all need rooms, and we're going to be here for about 3 or 4 weeks." And so, hotels do all kinds of planning. They'll plan if they have a busy time of year, how they're going to adjust, how they're going to sell certain rooms, what they're going to sell them for. And if they know that the business is coming, they can plan around that. And that's essentially what they did.
So if you're not running the hailstorm, run the hotel.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Now, is there a chain to stay away from?
Not a chain in particular. I mean, it's really on a, basis by basis scenario because you can go into the same Holiday Hampton Inn. And to me, honestly, I just want something that's been recently renovated if possible, because even the nicer hotels, if it hasn't been renovated in a while, can be kind of cruddy. I'm willing to stay almost anywhere, although I'm getting pickier as I get older. There was one place that I walked in and I opened the door. My wife had booked it for me because it was last minute. It's late at night. I'm tired. She booked it for me. It was cheap. And there was something, I don't know what kind of bug it was, about 3 inches long on the floor, dead on its back in the bathroom, which I was like, okay, no big deal. But then another one walked out and right up to my foot. And so I stepped on it and I was like, I was going to just stay in the room. Right, bug's not going to kill me. But I called my wife and she's like, you better go and get a different room. So I did. And then I left after that.
And a tetanus shot.
So, but I do prefer to stay someplace, at least a little nicer, clean. But I don't have any preference towards any particular hotel.
Yeah, and I know a lot of guys they tend to in the traveling groups or teams they tend to stay at like extended stay places that have kitchenettes. That way they could reduce their cost. They could go down to the grocery store, buy their groceries, and actually cook in their room and things like that to save a little bit of money.
Well, that brings up the next point. So, like for me in the RV, I traveled with my own kitchen, and I've got bad food allergies, so I can't go out to eat anywhere. But what do you guys hit the breakfast buffet at the hotel then?
Hooters for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
So we will. It's nice if we can get something that's included with breakfast is included. But unless you're staying someplace nicer, it's typically going to be a lot of the same stuff. A continental breakfast is not going to give you a lot of options, and you can get tired of it pretty fast. Now, sometimes we'll tough it out. And eat it anyways. There are guys that do like to stay at extended stays so that they can do groceries and come home and cook. Me, I always find that I'm so tired, and the last thing I want to do is come home and make a meal. We usually try to, if I can spend an extra 20 minutes working, it can more than pay for dinner. Usually more than pay for the cost of staying at a place that has breakfast included. You should be, I personally think you should be making enough money at whatever deal you're at that you shouldn't have to worry about that. Now, John does have an extreme food allergy, and some guys just like to cook. So, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when we get done with work, if there's time, like I'd like to try to go do something fun so it doesn't feel like I'm just working all the time. Because often we're working 6 days a week.
Yeah.
So, right. 6 or 7 days a week. I know guys that have pulled barbecue pits to storms. Behind their truck, and love to cook. I mean, it's always at least really good food for everybody else at the storm too.
I tried that, but they won't let me on a plane with it.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a particular restaurant chain that you have found has been consistent to go to, or do you try to find the local place?
No. Sometimes if I can't find something, yeah, we'll stick with some of the go-tos, some of the chains. But I do like to get out. And I mean, what's the point of doing all this traveling if all you ever do is eat at Applebeat's?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and experience some of the local scene. I mean, because you don't know what you don't know. Some place like I had never experienced, a place that you could walk into that had all the taps on the wall, and they give you a little credit card, and you can go pour your own beer. Until I was working up there in Wyoming.
That's kind of cool.
Oh yeah, no,
Yeah,
they're super cool, and they charge you by the ounce.
Yep, and those places are all around here. It's like those yogurt places.
Oh, really?
Where you go in, yeah. Only it's beer taps.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
No, you gotta experience it.
Yeah,
I've only got to see them in pictures. I don't even go in because if I touched anything, it would make me sick. So.
Yeah,
but I get to see all the pictures, and it's like, dang,
that's cool.
99 beers on the wall.
That's cool.
So yeah, and that's what I know some people that like I get stuck having to kind of stick with some of the chain stuff because it's the only thing that's I know that they offer food that I can eat. But I get to hang out with you guys, and you guys are like, man, I went over to this place and they had all this great food, and it's like,
I know. I always feel bad after the fact. Like when you're calling John, like, hey, John, you want to do dinner tonight? He's like, no, I'd rather live. So John doesn't get to make it out with us a bunch, and I feel bad.
Rude like that.
Oh, gosh.
Well, man, when you find the local place, have you ever found you being in a storm 3, 4, 5 weeks, and you find that key to get to know staff?
You always get a little bit of that. You come in, they see your face often because we're eating out often. They probably see us sometimes more than the locals, and that always is fun. It's cool, and if it's done right and you're traveling with the right people, I mean, company makes all the difference. When you're going to a storm. It can be really fun, when you're out there on the road. I mean, you're still working, and we're working long hours, and we're grinding hard. But we always make sure that, we have a little fun in the process. I used to not really do anything. I would go and I would grind and I would work 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And a few years back, my wife was finally like, she's like, you need to just go out and have some fun. She's like, because all you're doing is grinding, you're working, you're not seeing anything, you're just slaving away. And it's like, she's right. And it has been a lot more fun. And like I said, the right company makes all the difference in the world.
Now, you guys got to do some killer fishing trips, didn't you, last summer?
Let's see. Last summer, we did some golf. We did some fishing. A couple years ago, I worked with a buddy, and he actually chartered a boat on one of the lakes in Minnesota, which was cool. We went and did our own little fishing tournament.
Nice.
And we lost by a 1/4 inch, which sucked.
Every man's issue.
So I lost $100. But no, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do, and you should, if you're traveling, at least get out and just drive around town, even if it's if you're not you don't have to spend money, to have fun.
Unless you're in El Paso, Texas, then don't drive around town.
Well, there's the funniest thing about El Paso when I worked there. It's such a strange place because Juarez is literally right across the river.
Yeah.
And they have this big wall that you could see through. It's like a heavy industrial chain link fence. And it's very strange to be in a first world country and just looking across this small river and it being third world there.
Yeah.
It's quite the strange thing. And
I can imagine.
Yeah. El Paso was an interesting storm in itself.
Oh, sure.
My wife and I have that's what we loved about the travel. Everywhere we went, my wife would get done with all the R&Is and she would take off while I was pushing all the dents, and she'd put a giant list together of wherever we were at of all the things there are to see and do in that area. The key touristy things that are easy to find, like out the Chamber of Commerce website, all of that sort of stuff. And then we would start knocking them all off on our days off. And then as we got to know everybody and go hang out and go have fun and see all the sights and do stuff with people. So we've always had a great time.
Yeah, that's you got the perfect scenario. Your wife's with you, you're not itching to get back home. That's awesome. The way you had it set up and you ran it for 10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Running with my wife and having the family on the road, when a storm would die early or unexpected, we were on instant vacation. We'd paid our $400 for the month. If we still had 9 days left that were paid, we could sit there and go do whatever we choose.
Yeah.
So
now, let me ask you really quick, John. We're running out of time, but your wife getting into R&I, was that on purpose? Was it kind of how'd that come about?
Well, she had always helped me when we had our body shop, so she was kind of familiar with auto repair anyhow, but there was no point in having her come on the road and just sit in an RV and stare at walls. And she had some talent on it. Yeah. Well, she had some talent at it as well. So, I mean, she could come in, if we had multiple cars to do, she could rip apart 3 cars in an hour.
I think women would naturally be good at R&I. I think they would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Half the shops that we worked in, the body shop would request that she would do it better than their body guys because she didn't break as much. She took a little more time. I mean, in 10 years, we had one thing. I cannot say the same in all the years that I fixed cars.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that, though, I think that's good. Obviously, I love my wife and everything, but I'm not sure if I'd want to work with her all day and go back and be at home with her all night. And, maybe that's 19 years of marriage, but, I'm not sure.
Well, she would take the cars all apart, make sure that the body shop manager and the estimator all had their paperwork in order.
And then
she would split.
Oh, right.
She'd be gone by like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And she would go do all the grocery shopping and make sure the laundry was all kept up and figure out what all we were going to see.
Yeah.
And so then it'd speed me up. She'd come back at 3, put all the cars back together. We'd button up the final car.
Off you go.
Liaison out the door at 5. I'd work and doing it from doing 12, 14, and 16-hour days down to 8 and 10s.
Yeah.
And then I had full weekends off.
No, and
so then we had
great.
2 days of vacation everywhere we were.
Sure. My wifey is touchy-feely, so it's like I know while I'm working, she'd be coming up and giving me a massage and be like, get away from me, Or where are we going for lunch? Oh, I need an espresso. Can you take me? It's like, get out of here, woman. I'm working.
She would, she was free to go do whatever she wanted. I have a microwave and I took all my own food. So I cooked and ate in my stall and never left. But yeah, it worked for us because we'd worked together. This July makes 25 years of marriage for us.
Yeah,
so
that's a long time.
So let's wind this thing down. Any last little tips and advice you can give new guys out there?
Man, I just want to touch on the people skills portion, because every time you get on, you hear about how, you got to do great quality, and you got to answer your phone and you got to follow the leads. It's like, yeah, we all heard that. We all know that. But, I'm always trying to go against the grain and be more of an anomaly if I can. There's a lot of really simple things that you can do that can increase your chances of being invited to a storm, or being invited back. And I'll often tell people that you can really, really simplify that by just being likable. That's it. You definitely want to be yourself, right? You don't want to try to be someone that you're not, because that always shows.
That shows.
Right. You got to be authentic. But yeah, and it's simple. It's simple things like, being honest. If you break apart, let them know that you broke apart. If you're on a storm and you get another opportunity, rather than just splitting, see if you can find somebody that can fill your spot so you don't leave the person you're working for high and dry. Be professional. Don't come in with your clothes all ripped up or smelling like alcohol from the night before. I think humility is huge. Always being willing to learn. There's been a lot of guys that I've worked next to on the road that I don't like, but if I see that they're doing something that I think is better than I'm doing or is faster, I'm not afraid to ask and learn.
Yeah. If you're in a body shop somewhere, man, you can learn a lot about the R&Is from body techs.
Yeah. And also, one of the main things is don't let fear stop you from saying yes. And I've been saying this over and over to even, guys that are in their later years and doesn't matter what the industry is to, make sure that you're not letting fear dictate your decisions. Say yes, figure out how you're going to do it later. Maybe you don't think you can handle hail that severe, but I've gotten into places where I look around and like, man, those cars are smoked. But if those guys can do it, I can do it. And that's how, you push yourself to that next level.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that's great advice and a good place to end this podcast.
Yeah, because I can only follow that up with ditto.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
dude, this is great. I love all the advice you guys are giving. I hope our listeners get a lot out of it, and they're getting ready as we speak right now.
Yeah, because technically it is kind of early in the season for such big storms. So
it is, but be ready, gentlemen. This could be. You never know which one's going to be the killer year.
You never know. So one thing I do want to reach out and thank everyone that did reach out to me about the loss of my father. I had a lot of people contact me privately and personally and call me and all that. So for our listeners, all you guys out there that reached out to me, I really do appreciate that. He was 87 years old, a good man, and lived a full life and taught me well. And so I just wanted to reach out and let everyone know. Thank you for that.
Awesome.
Not to put a bummer at the end of the show, but so.
Well, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on.
Okay, Daniel, what do you got to say for yourself?
Guys, level up your hail tools.
Don't do stupid stuff.
And keep it stiff. This has been another episode of PDR Tool Time.